The whispers followed me long before I knew the truth. Eyes lingered when I walked by, neighbors smiled with pity, and laughter always seemed to stop when I entered a room. I thought I was respected here, Christian Nelson, builder of homes. But the only home I couldn't see crumbling was my own. My name is Christian Nelson. I'm 48, a construction engineer. Most of my life is spent on sites, away from my own house. I thought absence could be forgiven, that money and stability were enough. I believed my wife Evangeline understood, that she would always be my safe place. She was gentle, caring in ways that looked convincing. When I dragged myself in at midnight, she would meet me with a small smile. "You're late again," she said. "I know," I'd reply, kissing her cheek, "but it's for us." Those words became routine. They gave me comfort, even when her eyes said something else. To me, we were a normal couple. No storms, no drama, just quiet days and ordinary nights. And I was proud of that. Ordinary happiness, steady marriage. That's what the neighbors saw, or so I thought. But the silences grew different. At dinner she answered with nods instead of words. Her laughter came alive with others more than with me. Sometimes I'd catch her staring out the window too long. I asked once, "What are you looking at?" "Nothing," she answered quickly. "Just thinking." I believed her. I always believed her. I ignored the cracks, told myself marriage changes with time, that we were simply comfortable, not distant, that my absence was the only price. I remember saying one night, "I'm sorry I'm gone so much, but everything I do, it's for this house, for us." She looked at me, her smile faint, her voice low. "I know you try." The pause after those words still echoes in me. The neighbors, though, they looked differently. At barbecues, in the grocery line, even at church, smiles that carried pity, whispers that died the moment I walked past. Once, a man patted my back with a half smile. "You're lucky, Christian. Your wife is very loved around here." I laughed without thinking. I suppose I am. But the way he looked at me, it was not admiration. It was something sharper. Back then I wore blinders. I saw myself as the man who built strong foundations, who kept walls standing. I thought my home was safe because I wanted it to be. At night, lying beside her, I whispered, "I'm sorry I miss so much." She turned in her sleep, murmuring words I couldn't catch. I convinced myself it was forgiveness. I should have listened to the silence between us. I should have seen the way her gaze slipped away when I spoke. I should have heard the warning hidden in the neighbors' voices. But I didn't. I kept believing the story I told myself. Husband, provider, respected man. I thought I was living in a house of trust. In truth, I was living in a play where everyone else already knew the ending. Everyone but me. His name was Thomas Roberts, 42, my next-door neighbor. From the very first week he moved in, he made sure to show up at my door with a wide smile and a bottle of wine. "Thought I'd come by," he said that evening, extending the bottle. "It's good to keep things friendly in the neighborhood." I shook his hand firmly. "That's thoughtful of you. Welcome to the street." It seemed harmless. A decent man trying to settle in. He offered to help fix a loose fence, carried groceries when Evangeline's arms were full, even showed up one Saturday with a toolbox, insisting on checking the porch railing. I laughed at his enthusiasm. "You're more useful here than I am," I joked. Evangeline smiled at him more than she ever smiled at me in those days, but I didn't want to see it. Thomas slipped into our lives as if he had always been there. Some nights he joined us for dinner. He'd bring wine, talk about work, laugh at small jokes. I remember Evangeline leaning forward across the table, eyes bright, asking him questions as if every word he spoke was fascinating. I told myself she was simply being polite. That's what a good hostess does. "Christian," Thomas said one evening, "you're always working so hard. You should let me keep Evangeline company when you're away. No sense in her being alone." I laughed then, too easily. "Maybe I should. You're the kind of neighbor anyone would want." I didn't realize how much truth hid in those words. When I left for late meetings, I sometimes caught sight of his car in the driveway next to ours. "Thomas is just helping out," Evangeline explained when I asked. "He offered to check the pipes, the wiring. You know how handy he is." I nodded, trusting. Good man, I said. Not many neighbors like that anymore. But I began to notice their glances, the way her eyes lingered when he spoke, the quick smiles they shared when they thought I wasn't looking. At first I brushed it off. Neighbors can be close, nothing more. Still, something in my chest tightened each time I saw them together. One evening, Thomas was on our couch, a glass of wine in his hand, Evangeline sitting just a little too close. I walked in from the hall. "Am I interrupting?" I asked with a smile. "Not at all," Thomas said easily. "We were just talking about the new community event." Evangeline added quickly, "Thomas has such great ideas for bringing people together." I forced a laugh, sitting down across from them. "Seems you're more popular here than I am." He grinned. "I doubt that. But every neighborhood needs a little connection, don't you think?" His words sounded innocent, but the way his eyes flicked toward her told another story. I told myself again and again that I was imagining it, that I was tired, that work made me paranoid. But in quiet moments, when I replayed their smiles in my head, doubt grew louder. It is a cruel irony. I built homes strong enough to withstand storms, walls meant to last generations. Yet the man next door, he was building something inside mine, brick by brick, and I was too blind to see the wall rising between me and the woman I loved. I can still hear my own voice in those days, light with false confidence. I'm glad we have Thomas around. He's good for the neighborhood. If only I had known, if only I had seen how good can rot from the inside. I began to notice the looks. They were subtle at first, neighbors pausing mid-sentence when I walked by, eyes that lingered just a second too long, smiles that bent in ways I couldn't quite read. I told myself it was nothing, just the paranoia of a tired man. But the whispers, they had a way of reaching me even when I didn't want to hear. At the grocery store, two women stood near the fruit stand. One of them glanced at me and muttered something under her breath. The other tried to hide her smile. When I looked their way, they quickly turned, pretending to compare apples. My chest tightened. I walked past as if I hadn't noticed, but the echo of their laughter followed me all the way down the aisle. Back at home, Evangeline was different. She spent longer in front of the mirror, changing her dresses, adjusting her hair, using lipstick she hadn't touched in years. "You look nice," I said one evening, watching her fasten her earrings. She turned, smiling too brightly. "Just felt like making an effort." "For me?" I asked. "For both of us," she answered quickly, then grabbed her purse. "I'm meeting a friend for coffee. Don't wait up." She had friends, of course. But lately the names of these friends were vague, never the same, always somewhere outside the neighborhood. I didn't push. I wanted to trust her. I needed to. The phone became another wall. When I walked into the room, she pressed it face down on the table. When it buzzed in her hand, she'd laugh softly, then silence it. "Who's that?" I asked once. "Oh, nobody," she said, slipping it into her pocket. "Work stuff for the event." "Event?" I frowned. She waved a hand. "Community things. Don't worry about it." But it was impossible not to worry, especially when Thomas was in my house more often than I was. His car parked outside, his voice drifting through the windows when I came home early. I opened the door one afternoon to see him at our dining table, leaning back comfortably while Evangeline poured him coffee. "Christian," he said cheerfully, "we were just talking about the neighborhood cleanup next month." I forced a smile, hanging my jacket. "You seem to be organizing everything around here." Evangeline laughed lightly. "He's just being helpful." I sat across from them, my jaw tight. Maybe too helpful. Thomas chuckled as if I'd made a joke, but Evangeline looked at me carefully, then placed her hand on mine. "Don't be like that. You're tired. You've been working too much again." Later that night, I couldn't hold it in. "He's here a lot," I said, my voice low. "More than most neighbors would be." She tilted her head, half smiling. "You're imagining things." "I'm not blind, Evangeline." She sighed, brushing her hair back. "Christian, you're exhausted. You're seeing ghosts because you spend too much time away. Don't let work make you paranoid." Her words stung more than comforted. I wanted to argue, to press harder, but the way she looked at me, half amused, half pitying, made me fall silent. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, hearing faint laughter drifting from the porch where she had stepped out to take a call. My fists clenched against the sheets. I told myself I trusted her. I told myself I had no reason not to. But trust no longer felt like strength. It felt like weakness. And in the silence of that bedroom, one thought kept repeating in my head. He was in my house more than I was. And the more I tried to push it away, the heavier it became. The neighborhood loved its gatherings. Every summer, someone lit the grill, set out long tables, and everyone brought something to share. It was supposed to be simple: meat in the fire, laughter, children running across lawns. I used to enjoy it. But that night, everything felt different. I arrived later than most. Work had kept me again. When I stepped into the backyard, the smoke of the barbecue curled around groups of neighbors already settled with plates and drinks. I searched for Evangeline, expecting her to be waiting, but I saw her at the far end of the yard, standing with Thomas. They were leaning close, laughing at something I couldn't hear. Her hand touched his arm lightly, as if it was the most natural thing in the world, and everyone saw it. I felt the weight of eyes glancing between them, then toward me. I forced myself forward, greeted a few people with stiff nods. "Evening," I said. One man handed me a drink. "Long day at work, Christian?" "As always," I replied, trying to sound casual. But the laughter nearby dimmed when I approached. Smiles shifted. People looked at me the way you look at someone who doesn't understand the joke. I found my wife finally, placing a hand gently on her back. "Having fun?" I asked. She turned quickly, almost startled. "Of course. Thomas was just telling me about his new project." Thomas grinned, raising his glass. "Just boring work talk. You wouldn't want to hear it." I smiled thinly. "Try me." But before he could answer, a voice cut through the circle. It was Mrs. Carter, the old woman who'd lived down the street for decades. She had never been one to hold her tongue. She looked at me with a crooked smile and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Christian, you really are such a gentleman. Gentle enough not to see what's right in front of you." The words landed like a knife. For a second, the group froze. Then nervous laughter spread, brittle and sharp. People glanced at each other, shaking their heads as if to dismiss it. "Oh, don't mind her," someone muttered. "She's had too much wine." But I saw the truth in their eyes. They weren't surprised by what she said. They weren't shocked. They were embarrassed for me. I looked at Evangeline, waiting for her to defend me, to brush it off with conviction. She only forced a smile, her cheeks flushed. "Mrs. Carter likes her jokes," she whispered, and then she changed the subject, laughing too loudly at something Thomas said. I stood there, glass in hand, feeling the air tighten around me. I was no longer part of the conversation, not really. I was a spectator, standing inside my own life while others played the roles I should have held. I excused myself, moving toward the grill where the men were gathered. But even there, the talk slowed when I arrived. Someone muttered, "Tough guy, always working. No wonder he doesn't notice." They thought I hadn't heard. I did. Every syllable burned. Later that night, when I walked home beside Evangeline, I finally asked, "Did you hear what she said?" Evangeline sighed. "She's old, Christian. She talks nonsense, and don't let it bother you." "It wasn't nonsense," I snapped. "They all laughed because they understood it." She stopped walking, staring at me. "You're imagining things again. You're tired, overworked. You're making something out of nothing." I stared at her, trying to believe her words, but the sound of that brittle laughter still rang in my ears. The truth was simple. I wasn't imagining it. I was the last man in the neighborhood to catch on. That night, lying awake, I whispered to myself, "They're all actors, and I'm the fool standing on stage with no script." And in that silence, for the first time, I felt the weight of shame heavier than anger. I came home earlier than planned. The meeting had been canceled, and for once I thought I'd surprise Evangeline with dinner together. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed another car. His car. Thomas. My stomach turned before I even stepped inside. The front door creaked as I entered. I heard movement, hurried footsteps. Then Thomas appeared in the hallway, his face pale for a second before he forced a smile. "Christian," he said too quickly. "I was just leaving." He brushed past me, his cologne sharp in the air. No explanation, no eye contact, just gone. I stood frozen, keys still in my hand. When I turned, Evangeline was in the living room, smoothing her hair, her face calm but a little too calm. "You're home early," she said, her voice low. "Yes," I answered slowly. "And Thomas was here. Again." She didn't flinch. She walked toward the kitchen as if nothing had happened. "He came by to help with the sink. It's leaking again." I followed her, my voice harder. "Always the sink, always the pipes, always something. Why does he spend more time in this house than I do?" She spun around, eyes flashing. "What are you implying?" "I'm asking," I said through clenched teeth, "why he's leaving in a rush when I walk in. Why you look like you've just been caught in the middle of something." Her laugh was sharp, bitter. "Caught? Really, Christian? You've been working yourself to death, and now you want to invent stories because you don't like seeing me talk to someone?" My chest tightened. "I'm not inventing anything. I saw the way you looked at him. Everyone sees it. Everyone. Except me. Until now." Her voice rose, shaking with anger. "You don't trust me? After everything? You vanish for days, you come home late, you give me scraps of your time, and then you stand here and accuse me? I've been building a life for us," I shouted. "Every long night, every plan, every house I put together, it was all so you'd have more than I ever did." She pointed at me, her hand trembling. "No, Christian, you were building for yourself. You wanted to be the hero, the provider, and in the process you stopped being a husband. Don't you dare put this on me." Her words hit harder than a fist. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. "You're turning this on me?" I whispered. "On me?" Her eyes glistened but stayed sharp. "Yes, because this," she gestured between us, "this isn't broken because of Thomas. It's broken because of you. Because you were never here. Because you never saw me." Silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. My fists trembled at my sides. Finally I said, "So I'm the problem. I'm the blind one. I'm the fool everyone laughs at." She didn't answer. She just turned away, her back rigid, her breath uneven. I stood there, shattered, realizing the cruelest twist of all. I came home searching for truth, and somehow I had become the guilty one. It was raining that night. I wasn't supposed to be home. She thought I was miles away, buried in another project. But the meeting was canceled. I didn't call. I wanted to surprise her, to remind her I still chose her, even after all the distance. When I turned onto our street, the house was lit. Warm light spilled onto the porch. At first, I smiled until I saw the shadow of another figure standing beside her. Thomas. He was close, too close. His arm rested around her shoulders. She leaned into him as if it was the most natural thing in the world. My heart stopped, and then she looked up, her lips parting in a soft laugh, her body fitting against his. I stepped out of the car, rain pounding against me, my hands shaking. The sound of their voices carried under the storm. "Stay a little longer," she whispered. "I should go," he said, smiling. "But you make it hard to leave." My chest burned. My feet dragged me forward before I could think. "Evangeline," my voice tore through the rain. They both froze. She pulled back from him like a child caught stealing. Thomas straightened, his face paling. "Christian," she stammered, You're supposed to be away." "Yes," I said, each word sharp. "Supposed to be, but here I am, and there you are." I pointed at Thomas, my voice breaking. "With him." Thomas raised his palms. "Listen, it's not what you think." I cut him off, rage rising. "Not what I think? Then tell me, Thomas. Tell me what a married man should think when he finds his wife in another man's arms, on his own porch." Evangeline reached for me, tears already forming. "Christian, please, it's complicated." "Complicated?" I shouted. "No, it's simple. Too simple. Everyone else saw it. Everyone but me." From across the street came muffled laughter, then hurried whispers. Neighbors watching from their porches, from windows cracked open just enough. Their silhouettes blurred by rain, but I felt their eyes cutting through me. I turned back to her, my voice shaking. "How long?" She flinched. "Don't ask me that." "How long, Evangeline?" I roared. Silence. Her lips trembled, but no answer came. That silence was worse than any confession. I staggered back a step, my breath ragged. "You let me play the fool. You let them all laugh at me while you—" I looked at Thomas, fury boiling. "While you tore down my house brick by brick." Thomas stepped forward, voice low. "I never meant—" "Shut your mouth," I snapped, my fist tightening at my side. "You meant every second of it." Evangeline cried out. "Stop it, both of you, this isn't helping." Helping? I whispered. The word tasted like poison. I looked at her. Rain dripping from my face like tears I refused to show. You broke me, and you didn't even do it in secret. You did it with an audience. Do you understand what that means? Do you? She covered her face, sobbing. Thomas stayed frozen, caught between guilt and fear. And me. I stood in the storm, drowning in humiliation deeper than anger. For the first time, I had no words left, only the truth that crushed me silent. I don't remember walking up the steps. One moment I was standing in the rain, the next I was on the porch, staring at them both as if they were strangers in my own home. My chest burned, my throat felt raw. Words ripped out of me before I could stop them. Years, Evangeline, I shouted, my voice cracking. Years I've built the world outside, skyscrapers, bridges, whole lives for other families. And I couldn't even hold together one house, my marriage. She shook her head, tears streaming. Christian, please. Don't, I cut her off. Don't you dare say my name like it still belongs to you. I turned on Thomas, rage boiling over. And you called this neighborly. You called it kindness. Is that what you call it? Sneaking into another man's life while he's breaking his back to provide for his family? He lifted his hands, trying to stay calm. It wasn't like that. Don't lie to me, I roared. You think I can't see it? You think I haven't seen your hands on her, your smiles, the way she lights up for you and not for me? The sound of shuffling reached my ears. I turned. In the blur of rain and streetlights, I saw them. Neighbors gathered on porches, some standing under umbrellas, others peeking from windows. Their faces half hidden, but their presence heavy. An audience, watching every word. It felt like the whole street was holding its breath, waiting for the show to reach its climax. I pointed at them both, my voice shaking with fury and shame. Do you know what it means to be laughed at by your own community? To walk these streets and feel eyes burn into your back because they know your wife belongs to someone else? Do you have any idea what it does to a man? Evangeline sobbed, covering her face. I never meant to hurt you like this. You didn't just hurt me, I said coldly. You destroyed me, and you let them all watch. Thomas stepped forward as if to defend her. Christian, if you'd been around more... The words snapped something inside me. I lunged a step closer, my voice low, deadly. Don't you dare blame me for the filth you've done. Don't you dare put this on my work, on my sacrifices. I was out there building for us, and you were in here, tearing it all down. From across the street came a muffled laugh, quickly hushed but not quick enough. My stomach twisted. It felt as though the whole neighborhood had started applauding, silently, mockingly, every gesture, every word of my humiliation. I gripped the porch rail, trembling. This isn't just betrayal, it's a performance, and I'm the lead fool on stage. The rain fell harder, beating against the wood, against my skin, but nothing drowned out the weight of their silence. The shame was louder than thunder. Evangeline whispered through her sobs, I'm sorry, but I couldn't hear her anymore. All I could hear was the echo of a community that had seen everything long before I did. And in that moment, I realized the cruelest truth. I had lost more than a wife. I'd lost myself in front of an audience that would never let me forget. The house was quiet the next morning. Too quiet. I moved through the rooms like a stranger, touching walls I had once believed unshakable. Every photograph, every piece of furniture, every corner of this place whispered a lie I no longer had the strength to keep alive. I opened the closet and pulled out a suitcase. The sound of the zipper felt final, sharp, like the tearing of fabric too old to mend. I folded shirts without care, threw in shoes, ties, whatever I could grab. Each piece felt meaningless now. The only thing I wanted to carry out of this house was my dignity. Evangeline stood in the doorway, her eyes swollen from crying. She didn't move toward me. She didn't reach for my hand. She simply watched. When I looked up, she whispered, Christian, don't go. I shook my head. My voice was low, steady. I can't stay. Not after this, not after everything. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I didn't want it to end like this. Neither did I answered. But you made your choice, and I have to make mine. Behind her in the hallway, Thomas lingered. He said nothing. He didn't even try. His eyes dropped to the floor, his shoulders tense, like a boy caught stealing. I almost wanted him to speak, to defend himself, so I could unleash every word still burning inside me. But he stayed silent, and somehow his silence was worse. I closed the suitcase and carried it to the door. My steps echoed in the hollow air, each one heavier than the last. Evangeline followed a few feet behind, crying softly, but she never touched me. She never tried to hold me back. Maybe she knew it was already too late. At the door, I paused, looking back at her one last time. The woman I had trusted with my life, my future, my name. The woman who had turned my marriage into a spectacle. She was crumbling now, but I felt nothing left in me to save her. "You'll hear from the lawyer soon," I said. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. Cold. Final. I stepped outside. The morning air was sharp, the street wet from the night storm. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains, pretending they weren't watching. But I felt their eyes all the same. Always watching. Always knowing. I loaded the suitcase into the car, slid behind the wheel, and started the engine. For a moment, I gripped the steering wheel and closed my eyes. Then, I drove. Past the houses, past the stairs, past the life I no longer belonged to. As the road stretched before me, my voice broke the silence inside the car. I once thought betrayal was a private tragedy, something between two people, hidden within the walls of a home. But I was wrong. The greatest mistake I made was not seeing that when the world already knows, betrayal stops being private. It becomes a public sentence. And when that happens, there is no house strong enough for me to return to. The rain began again, soft against the windshield, like the closing of a curtain after a play. And I drove on, leaving behind the ruins of the stage I had been forced to stand on.